What's going on, guys? Jurassic here. Today we're back with another Elite Dangerous tutorial. Today we're going to be going more in-depth on colonization efforts to fully set up your Coriolis system. Now this is for the larger spaceports. You're going to scroll down and you'll notice there's going to be 19 different resources that are required to deliver. A couple people pointed out in the previous video that the value is actually per unit instead of total. So the first video, unfortunately, we had a slight math error. However, this time around we'll have an Excel sheet and a PDF down in the description down below. That way you guys are able to keep track of it to see which ones you actually want to mine versus which ones you want to purchase, or if you just want to purchase them all together. Alright, now this is for the bigger spaceport options. You're going to notice we have the required resources here. That's basically going to be the amount that we physically have to turn into the fleet carrier to fully colonize. We have the value per unit. This is all based on in-game prices. If you get them cheaper at a fleet carrier, then obviously some of the math is going to be changed for that. And we have what it would be cost for buying everything at MSRP based on in-game values. Now the overall for a complete station cost, if you're planning on just buying everything and not mining out anything at all, is going to be $328,747,491 for a main Coriolis system. The total cargo needed is going to be 70,923. That's how much cargo you're going to have to run back and forth through the fleet carrier before you fully get it. Now, I have the spreadsheet set up for the cheaper resources. I have them separated inside the spreadsheet. That way, if you decide to just buy these lower ones, you can see exactly how much it's going to cost you and how much storage space required. So that'll be found over here at the bottom. We're going to need 4,305 total storage. And if we're buying under 1 million, it's going to cost you 3,846,160 credits. Now, if you're trying to just buy the over 1 million, that's going to cost you 324,901,331 credits. So basically, majority of our cost is going to be over the 1 million bar. And also that's going to cost you 66,618 tons of storage. So it's going to take you quite a while to get this, regardless if you decide to buy it or mine it. Now, with that said, what kind of ships would we recommend to deliver the cargo back and forth? Regardless if you have a fleet carrier or not, eventually you're going to have to take it from your carrier and deliver it to this colonization system. So we're going to go over a video on how to set up a Type 9 Heavy and a Cutter, since those are the two largest cargo haul ships that are relatively easy to obtain. Alright, so now that we're at the station, this might be more of a controversial thing to say. However, in my opinion, this is the most PvE update that we had so far. So if you're planning on hauling a bunch of cargo back and forth, I do recommend being in a private server. That way someone doesn't gank you and get rid of all your materials. That's just going to save you a lot of time and effort. Now, with that being said, we are basically going to turn our Type 9 into a semi-exploration ship, and by that I mean we're going to basically gut all of the hard points out. We're going to take off all the utility mounts. So for core internals, we're going to go with a lightweight alloy hull. Basically that's going to be the lightest one possible for our Type 9. We want to try to keep the mass down as much as possible. That's why we're able to get the higher jump range, which is going to come into play later on when we fully fill up our ship. Now, with that being said, you're going to notice we have a lot of very similar builds to our exploration ship. We have the power plant set up to 4A. That's because of the mass. The 4A power plant is much lighter than a Class 6, and we don't have any hard points or anything that we need to deploy, so there's no real reason to have a Class 6 for this specific setup of just hauling cargo back and forth. Now, that being said, the Type 9, the Cutter are both super slow, so if you want to go with a 7A thruster, or even engineer your thruster to make it go faster, that is more of a personal preference. I do recommend it. However, you can drop down if you prefer. SCO drive, if you really wanted to, you could drop this down to a 6D. However, once again, the further range that we're able to get, the more efficient that we're going to be able to get cargo back and forth. So I personally would just keep it as a 6A SCO or even the 6A pre-engineered one. Now, some of the components we don't necessarily need, like life support, for example. You want to have it so it's a Class D. D is going to be the lightest, where E is economy, so E is technically cheaper, but D has the lower mass, which is what we want for this. Now, same with our power plants before. Our power distributor has been underclocked severely all the way down to a 2A. Usually it'll have a class 6, however, the mass that we're able to get on the 2A and have everything fully powered for what we need makes it worth it. Sensors, we're going to go with 4D. Once again, most of this is going to be worrying more about dropping mass. The fuel tank, that's all standard, so you can't really do anything different with that. Now, this is where you can sort of pick and choose a couple different options here. So you want to go with mainly cargo racks. If you want to have a shield to feel a little bit more protected in case you accidentally bump into things or in case an NPC attacks you, you can. However, you're not really going to get away in a lot of these ships, especially since we don't have any weapons, so the shield generator isn't necessarily too important. And we don't need the anti-corrosive cargo racks, however, I had them already here, so they have the exact same cargo space and everything else, so that's why they're on this build. But you can just run your normal size 4 cargo racks right here. Now with that being said, since we are going to drop our shield generator since we don't really need it, this is going to be a little bit different. However, if you're wanting to keep your shields, you're going to have to drop a 6E cargo rack and replace it for a Guardian booster module. I recommend always doing this for a further jump range. You don't necessarily have to physically have this, but the further jump range we have stock, the further we're going to be able to get whenever we're fully loaded up. As you guys can see right now, our Type 9's max jump range is 34.49 light years. We have a unengineered SCO drive since it was in my other ship, but this is basically the cheapest that you're going to be able to get. Now, fuel scoop, you're going to notice that there's no mass inside of this one. So I always run a fuel scoop, especially if you're thinking that you might have to jump a couple stars to grab some material. It's always nice to have a fuel scoop. In the planetary approach suite, you don't have an option that physically has to come with you the entire time. So all in all, we have a 34.49 light year jump range. Our power jaw, you're going to notice, is completely fine since we don't really have that many things on the Type 9. Alright, now with that being said, if we click the 4 key and head over to inventory, you're going to notice our total cargo space is 756. Now pulling up the chart beforehand, this is going to be for the overall total cargo needed. So we have 7923. So this is going to take you about 94 trips to take it over to your colonization carrier. Now, that is going to seem quite daunting of a task. However, you can also spread it out multiple days. It's going to take you about a month. It'll give you about a month to actually get your station fully set up, so you don't have to do it in one night, which is why it seems like a super high number of trips that you're having to go back and forth between. I'd have it a little bit more prepared today, but the servers were down, and I do have work later on today, so I will say we're going to have the SCO pre-engineered delivered to the cutter, and that's going to grant us a total of 57.05 light year jump range. That's going to take us about half an hour to get it delivered though, so for this video, just assume that our jump range is 57 instead of 36. Now for hard points, as you guys can see, we have everything completely stripped off of it. Same with utility mounts, that's all going to be empty. Now, core internal, we're going to have it very similar to our Type 9, so we're going to go with lightweight alloy hull, 4A power plant. Thrusters, you can have 60 if you want to save on weight. The Class 8, you can have the thrusters set to 8D. The Class 8 thrusters are going to be quite heavy, so we're trying to do as much lightweight components as possible to be able to go efficiently. As you guys know, our frameshift drive is being delivered. That's going to increase our jump range, but just imagine this is a 7A SCO pre-engineered. We have a 7D life support. We go with the same 2A power distributor that we had in the Type 9. Now for sensors, we're going to have to do a 7D. These are the lightest sensors possible that'll fit inside of the slot. For the internals, basically we're going to have the exact same setup, so as long as you see a Class 8, you want to match it with an 8 cargo rack. If you see a Class 6, match it with 6. And vice versa. I always recommend having one Guardianship drive booster on if it's available to you. If not, you'll have an additional 32 cargo capacity. However, adding in an extra 10.5 light year jump range to your ship, this just seems worth it to me. Now the cutter is going to be a little bit different. It has 2 slots for military components. Unfortunately though, these are all going to add mass, which is not what we're wanting. So basically we're just going to bypass both of those slots and continue on with our cargo racks as normal. I do recommend having a 1A fuel scoop on. You can put a better fuel scoop, however it's going to take up your cargo space, so I have 1A just in case you run into a system where you need to land. That's going to get you covered for that. So all in all, the difference between the cutter and the Type 9, if we go inside of our inventory, this gets us a cargo capacity of 760, which we have pulled up on the calculator still, is only a 10-ton difference between the Type 9 and the cutter. So you can sort of pick and choose. Obviously, this is going to require Imperial reps to be grinded out, which is why I think the Type 9 is a little bit more on edge when it comes to that. There are going to be some situations where if you're trying to buy the materials, they just don't have a large landing pad, so you might want to set up a Type 8 with the exact same setup that we've done in these other two ships. However, you're going to have much less cargo capacity, so they're not really included, which is why they weren't included inside of this video. But some of these stations that are medium might be selling things at a better price. If you don't know how to do that, we can check Inara real quick. And for example, let's use the most expensive item on the list. So let's say we want to buy some steel. So we put steel inside this commodity panel, we click search. It's going to pull up a whole bunch of different areas here. Now you're going to notice the supply and the prices, they're not necessarily going to match what is listed in game. And for a fact, you're going to notice that the steel on the listed in-game value was 5,057. However, we found one listed for 3,532. One thing to keep in mind though, this is in Lenka, this is a medium pad. We are in a large ship, so we're not going to be able to land here. However, we can land over at the next place over here, which has a large pad. Now, just because Inara shows that it has a high supply and the price is decent, that's not a guarantee that by the time you get there, someone hasn't already bought it out, so keep that in mind when you're going around trying to buy your commodities. If this guide helps you guys out, commanders, let me know down in the description down below. Hopefully we got everything this time around. Oh, one thing to add in, you are going to need some local reputation to actually try to help a system colonize over to the other area. You need to at least be friendly to move on to colonizing a system for them. I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks so much for sticking around, and we will have our Twitch drop partner skins going on live Thursday and Friday night, so you're welcome to join in with the normal shenanigans that we have going on. But I will see you in the next one, commanders.